And now we move over to Caleb Sander, who is on Zoom. Good afternoon, Caleb. It's good to have you on Signature TV's Global News. Now, let's start with the conflict in Benue State being often seen as an ethnic and religious clash. And Teva, just before you did say that it's not a clash, that it's more or less something else between Christian farmers and Muslim herders. So, how accurate is this framing?
So I listened, I read very carefully the press release by the president. And somehow from that press release, I could get the feel that he was informed that the situation in Benue is a farmer header situation. But that's not the case. Would you also say that the situation in Plateau is a farmer header situation? Or would you say it's the same situation in Kaduna and other parts of the country that are also experiencing these killings? It's not a situation that is peculiar to only Benue State. It's happening across the country. So it's not a farmer header situation. These are innocent, harmless Nigerians, farmers living in rural areas, sleeping in their homes, and then armed headsmen will come and wipe them off in brutal formats. And what is disturbing is this thing is not only happening in one part of Benue State. It sometimes will happen in Buma local government, and then when focus is taken to Buma, you see that it has started happening in Apa local government. And when you start to shift focus to Apa local government, you notice it's starting to happen in Boko. But the point I'm making is it's hard to know exactly where they're going to hit next. When you start to think this place is safe, another area starts to get affected. So it's not a situation of farmer header clashes. You don't hear that these people had a fight with some Fulani headsmen last week or 2 weeks ago, a month ago, before an attack. These are peaceful areas, people living peacefully, randomly experiencing these attacks, and then families are wiped off. Like for the attack that led to the protest yesterday. The reason there's a large outcry now, because this has been happening for decades, since the current SGF was governor of Benue State. That's a long time ago, as far back as 1999. That's when this thing started. And it's been going on for years. The reason the outcry was loud yesterday was because it happened in a location that the Nigerian army is housing two of its bases. The Nigerian army has presence in that location. Like they have Nigerian Army School of Engineering. Then they have the 72 Battalion, both based in North Bank, about 10-15 minutes drive away from the location of these attacks. These attacks started at night around 10-11 p.m. and happened till about 2 p.m. in the night. Note that there are two army formations in this area, large army formations, but there was little or no response. In fact, the exact location that was attacked, has about 15 people, 15 soldiers manning a checkpoint there. So it was troubling, and it started to look like there was something we're not being told. This was the reason behind the outcry, because that location is just 10-15 minutes away from the state capital. The state capital houses Nigerian Air Force Base. The Nigerian Air Force Base is in the state capital. The Nigerian Air Force Base is barely 30 minutes away from where this attack occurred. And this thing happened, while it was happening in rural areas, people could somehow understand that it's because it's far away from basic military or armed forces locations, and that's why intelligence cannot be gathered or they cannot respond in time. But these things happening in the state, around the state capital, where we have the police headquarters, we have the DSS headquarters, we have the two army formations, we have Air Force Base, and other paramilitary agencies also located within the state capital. And then this thing happens for 2 to 3 hours with over 200 people killed, and then there's no response. It felt like there's something we are not being told, and that was the brainchild of the outcry that you saw yesterday.
Okay. Now, given that situation, are we going to look at it as a security failure or strategic failure, knowing fully well that just recently the Chief of Army Staff was in Benue State?
I think it is both political. You can look at it from the political side. You can look at it from the security angle. Because when people came out to protest yesterday, if you see the heavy security presence at the protest point, it was surprising. Armored vehicles were deployed. Heavily armed policemen were deployed. And later the army personnel were also deployed. It didn't take time before we noticed that one helicopter was hovering over the protesters. So the question now was, if that kind of heavy force can be sent out towards protesters, people that are crying about killings of their loved ones, why isn't such force sent against the people perpetrating these attacks? So I feel it's not just political, it is also the security forces are not working as much as they should. That's aside. We've not really seen arrests. We've not seen people arrested and paraded over these killings. It's been going on for decades. But we've not seen people arrested and paraded. Say, these are the people that attacked X community yesterday. And then when they are paraded, we can now get an understanding. But sometimes we see people commit crimes in this country and they are paraded and then they make confessions. Let them arrest at least one of these headers, these armed headers. Let them also speak to us. Let's have an understanding of what they want. Because to date, we do not really know what they want. Because they attack and go back into the bush. So is it really about cleansing? Is it really about land grabbing? Is it a religious war? Is it even a war in the first place? So there are a lot of questions and no answers at all. So I would take it back to you and say it is just political. It is everything you want to make out of it.
Caleb, while we're still looking for the right answers, what do you think can be done to address the root cause of this violence? Yes, we're looking for answers, but in your own opinion, what do you think can be done to address the causes of the violence in Benue State?
Okay, I'm not a security person, but I would suggest that the Benue State governor should work with all the leaders across all the local governments in the state, traditional leaders, political leaders, religious leaders. He should work with them. Then they need to study the blueprints that was used in Borno State. Borno State was the most hit state across the country by Boko Haram. Nobody knows what the current governor, Governor Zulum, did, but he has reduced the drama, the terror in that state to a reasonable point. So I feel they can borrow the blueprints that was used in Borno State. They can take a look at what was done there and then try to implement it in Benue State. Having said that, I'll also mention that in Benue, the political class is heavily divided. The opposition party is also heavily divided. The PDP is divided into has two factions, so much so that they have two secretariats. The ruling APC also has two factions. The SGF has a faction, the governor has a faction. And the governor is not really in good terms with the representatives of the state at the National Assembly. So if the House is divided in it like that, in that format, divided against itself, how then is it going to fight people attacking from outside? So I would also suggest that the House needs to come together. The state governor needs to lead that charge, bring in the SGF, get back close to the SGF, get back close, bring in the National Assembly members, and then have another town hall meeting that they can now discuss, share ideas, and then come up with a workable plan that will reduce the plight of our people. Yesterday, a woman lost her mother and her 5 children. That story really broke me into pieces. We had a man that lost 15 of his relatives, including his wife and children. These are real human beings.
Caleb Sender, thank you very much. He is a public commentator, and thank you for your invaluable contributions to our conversation on the insecurity and killings in Benue State. Thank you for coming to Signature TV.
Thank you.
Signature TV. News in your pocket.